welcome. I'm John Graves, and I'm the Director of Operations here at ArtistWorks. I want to help you, or welcome you guys to this month's ArtistWorks Live, where we're going to be talking with Peter Erskine, our online jazz drums teacher here at ArtistWorks. We're going to be taking questions from you, the audience, so please get those ready. And if you please include your student name with your questions, we're going to qualify you for a special prize that we're going to be giving away at the end of the program today. So let's introduce Peter. He's appeared on over 600 recordings, including multiple film scores and soundtracks. He's won 2 Grammy Awards, and he's received an honorary doctorate from the Berklee School of Music. He's played with so many legendary artists, too many to name, but here's a few: Chick Corea, Jaco Pastorius, Weather Report, Freddie Hubbard, Joni Mitchell, Pat Metheny, so many more. He's been voted Best Jazz Drummer of the Year 10 times by the readers of Modern Drummer magazine. He was just recently voted into the Modern Drummer Hall of Fame. Congratulations on that, and he's also currently nominated for a Grammy this year, 2017. That only scratches the surface of what this man has accomplished. Let's welcome him now. Peter Erskine, how you doing, sir?
I'm good, thank you, John. You know what, that Modern Drummer honors actually not supposed to be public yet, so everyone forget you heard that.
Whoops. When does that go out? That's like May, right?
Yeah, I think they announce it in April or something like that.
All right, but well, let's just keep that between us friends here. Then.
That's all between us. And welcome, everyone. Good afternoon or good morning, whatever time zone you're in. I'm here to answer any questions you may have, so let's get right down to it.
Well, let's start. Maybe you can introduce the gentleman that's in the room there with you and tell us a bit about him.
Okay, I'm going to turn the camera, and there is Mr. Bill Platt. Bill Platt recently retired from the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra, where he served as the principal percussionist for 40 years on a couple hundred recordings. Wow. And he may be the world's most recorded symphonic percussionist. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure of that either.
But he's the best hands guy in the business. He has helped me out a lot, and he joins me teaching a number of my students at the University of Southern California. And so just by happenstance and chance, Bill's in town, so I invited him along for this fun Q&A.
Awesome. Well, welcome, Bill. Thanks for joining us. Let me quickly remind our viewers that today's questions are coming solely from you. So although time will only permit me to get to a small amount of these, start sending them in now so we can hit as many as possible. Include your student name with the question, like I said before, and you're going to qualify to win a little bit of a prize that will be given away at the end of the conversation here. It's going to be a great hour, so let's get started. I'm going to start off with a question for you, Peter. Let's just start from the beginning. Maybe talk about what were some of your first real big gigs, and if there are any that maybe stand out to you as like a turning point or a breakout moment in your career.
Well, my very first gigs, because I started when I was 5 years old, I think the very first one was when I was 6 years old. I played a benefit for the Musicians Union in Atlantic City, New Jersey. And they got me up on stage with a big band. And that gave me a taste of what it was like to perform in front of people. And shortly after that, I did a Ted Mack Amateur Hour appearance, playing with the house big band up there. It was Sing, 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 Gene Krupa's arrangement. And so I was on TV, and you can find that on YouTube.
Oh, nice.
Then my first gig as a union working musician, I was 14 years old, and I played a country club, a golf club, in my hometown of Linwood, New Jersey, and it was just me and a piano player. And this guy looked like, you know, he could have come out of central casting for The Godfather.
Nice.
And he had a tuxedo, and he saw me, you know, setting up, and he saw my relative youth and inexperience. He said, Now listen, he said, I just want you to play Boom Chick. Boom Chick, Boom Chick, Boom Chick. I was young. I kind of wanted to just play what I thought I could play, show him what I could do. And he would stop and turn to me and he'd go, play Boom Chick. Go back to his piano playing. Couldn't resist. I tried to hip it up a little bit. He finally pounds the keyboard in exasperation. He turns and he said, listen, play Boom Chick and keep it that way. And this was right out of The Godfather. I mean, it was really scary. So, yes, sir. I just played Boom Chick. So my very first gig was possibly one of my worst. I went on the road when I was 18. I was lucky enough to be invited to play with the Stan Kenton Orchestra. Meanwhile, I'd been going to school at Interlochen Arts Academy and Indiana University for 1 year. So I had a lot of performing experience. And then I got to live the life. I was on the road for 3 years, decided to go back to school. Once I played professionally, I was getting a greater appreciation for what I needed to learn. Mm-hmm. And when I got back to school, my teacher, Professor George Gaber, was like, wow, what happened to your hands? And I said, what do you mean? He said, you're just hitting everything so hard. Uh-oh. So you learn bad habits sometimes when you're doing gigs because you do whatever you have to do.
Right, yeah.
Gig,
Yep.
So whatever you're doing, gang, it's always a good idea to get a reminder of how to play the instrument, because we all develop bad habits. My bad habits carried me through then going on the road with Maynard Ferguson for a couple of years. And that's where I met Jaco Pastorius. He heard me play one night and recommended me to Joe Zawinul and Wayne Shorter. And I guess that might be the second bit of advice from this story is you never know who's listening. And every time we get to make music, it's such a great opportunity. And so you always just try to make the best music you can.
Amen.
There you go.
Where did you say that gig was, that Jaco heard you for the first time?
That was at a jazz club down in, I think it was Miami, Florida.
Wow.
Jaco lived in Fort Lauderdale, and he happened to be home between Weather Report tours and recording sessions. They were making the album titled Mr. Gone. They hadn't titled it yet, but that was the music they were working on. And by the time I joined, I got to play on a couple of tracks of the album, and we did a tour of Japan and Australia. Mm-hmm. And it was at the end of that short tour that I was officially invited to be a member of the band. And I played in Weather Report for 3 years, and then rejoined the group for the final album. So I made a total of 5 albums at the time with the band, and then several compilations and reissues have come out since that time, including a 4 CD compilation called The Legendary Live Tapes. I produced this. It was a collection of recordings from my Sony cassette deck that I always traveled with, and I would ask the front of house sound guy, Brian Risner, to, hey, my recording tonight. And so this music was sitting unheard, more or less unearthed, for over 30 some years, almost 40 years. So that just came out, and that was a lot of fun to know that people could finally hear a little more what that band could do live. The band knew how to make good records. It was a live performing band for sure.
Oh, that's incredible. So when Jaco approached you, he was already on your radar, I imagine. At that point, you knew who he was, and
well, sure. I mean, everyone I knew was a fan of his first album. It was just Jaco Pastorius and that beautiful black and white photo. And I thought he was some guy from Europe. I mean, it just had a European look somehow. He's from Florida. So I was blown away by his playing. And in fact, I put 2 and 2 together later. I remembered after the fact that whenever I would play in Florida with the Kenton Band, people would come up and say, hey, man, we got this we got this bass player in town, and every town had a, hey, we got this great musician, this and that. But in Jocko's case, it was true. They had this amazing bass player. Anyway, so the first time I meet Jocko, and he came to the club at the invitation of one of the trumpet players, a guy named Ron Tooley, who you can see playing trumpet now on Saturday Night Live. He's in the band.
Yeah, yeah.
So Ron was in Maynard's band, and he played on Jocko's first album, and he gives Jocko kind of a courtesy phone call, expecting to get Jocko's answering machine. Jocko picks up the phone. They chat. And then Ron says, hey, you want to come see the band? And Jocko said, nah, that's okay. You know, I heard you guys last time you were in town. And then Ron said, hey, well, you know, we got a new drummer. You might want to check this guy out. And then Jocko said, I'll be there. So I knew that Jocko was coming to the gig. However, when I met him, I didn't recognize him because here's this guy with long, stringy, kind of greasy hair. Had a shirt buttoned all the way up to the top, striped shirt, and I think he was wearing a sweater that didn't go with it. Horn-rimmed glasses, a Philadelphia Phillies baseball cap. And so Ron Tooley, oh, Peter, say hi to Jocko Pastorius. So I'm embarrassed to say my first words to Jocko, when I looked up and saw him, I just went, no shit. And
that's great.
And so we chatted a bit, and then I said, well, you'll have to excuse me. It's time for us to play the second set. And he knew that I knew that, you know, I was essentially playing for him. And he yelled out to me as I was going up to the bandstand. He goes, hey, man. And I turned around, and he said, have fun.
Nice.
Now, no one had ever said that to me before. It was always, do a good job, play well. And so it took all the anxiety, all the fear out. I had fun. I was just smiling and laughing the whole time I was playing. And that makes it a lot easier, folks. You know, this is supposed to be fun. We should have fun.
Right. That's great. Cool. So let's get to a couple of questions. Lots of questions coming in for you, obviously. This one's from James Howe. It says, it seems drums are as much about how they feel as how they sound. So, you know, talking about cymbals, feel, respond, and everything, how those respond much differently than toms. He just says, so how does one make drums feel great to play as well as they sound great?
Okay, that's a good question, James. Just recently, I was at the Jazz Education Network conference in New Orleans, and our band played on the third day of the conference, and I had a chance to hear other bands play in this same room. And the drummers, you know, had good cymbals. When I went up on stage after their set, oh, nice cymbal. But out front, they didn't sound very good. I wasn't hearing any clarity, any point. So I made a conscious decision. I didn't travel with my own cymbals. Well, I was borrowing some from the Zildjian exhibit, which was in the exhibit area. And so I asked for a very dry cymbal that would have a lot of clarity and a lot of point. Now, the feedback I got from the audience was uniformly, oh, the cymbals sounded incredible. They sparkled. They sounded great. I got to tell you, they felt terrible. It was like playing on a tabletop. It was so dry. It was unrewarding. But I had faith that it was sounding good out front because I made a calculation about the sound. So the answer to your question, James, is that you visualize, you image through the sound of whatever sound you're getting, what you want it to sound like. You know, Buddy Rich sat in on my drums when I was playing with the Kenton Band.
Wow.
I had single-headed toms. I had cymbals that were as big as a surfboard. I mean, you know, nothing like Buddy's drum set. And you know what it sounded like when Buddy played on my drums? It sounded like Buddy's drum set.
Wow.
So the sound, a lot of it's up here. When you visualize and imagine what you want it to sound like, your touch will adjust. So you can't just play what your hands know. You have to be involved every moment when you're playing with the sound that you want to get. And I hope that doesn't sound too like sprinkle fairy dusty kind of thing.
No, that's incredible knowledge right there. That's awesome.
It's a reality. If you imagine the sound, it will come.
Wow, that's great. I heard Eddie Kramer tell a similar story about John Bonham, and how did you get that sound? How his kit to sound so big? And he just said, you know, you could put an SM57 on the floor in front of his kit and press record, and it would have sounded good because it was how he played the kit. He just played so big, and you know, so that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of mystery to it, you know.
Yeah.
Put up a mic, turn it on, and play.
There you go. So Rob Weeks wrote in and said, I'm new to the jazz genre, and I'm still trying to get a feel for how it all works with the drums. Can you tell me some basics of how the guitar melds with the drums and bass?
This is from John?
This is from Rob Weeks.
Oh, Rob, sorry. And is Rob a drummer or guitarist?
He didn't say, but from the way he's talking, it almost sounds like he's a guitar player, approaching the jazz guitar, how that fits in with the rhythm section.
Well, I'm going to just generalize here. I mean, jazz is a language, and to speak any language, you have to spend time listening to it and speaking it. You know, I can't start speaking French just because I decide I want to. I have to study the vocabulary, the grammar, and maybe spend a little time in Gay Paris, which would be fun. But let's go over a couple of basics. Number one, jazz is generally not as loud as a lot of other contemporary music. So it's going to be easier for you to get the feel if you kind of start very soft and build up from there. So that's number one. You don't want to play the instrument too loud or too hard.
Yeah.
Number two, we often differentiate jazz as being a triplet-based music. You know, the ride pattern, 1, 2, 3, 4, which more or less it is. But if I were to sing you an example of a bebop melody or solo, which is a very typical kind of mainstream jazz expression. So for example, I'm just making this up, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, boo do ba do ba do ba do ba dip boo ba dip boo ba bip ba ba do ba do ba dip ba do ba dip ba do da do ba do ba dip boo ba do ba boo boo ba do ba boo. Okay. So except for thank you. So except for the here's a fancy word for you. Except for the appoggiatura, which was the doodly bop, the little ornamentation, I would challenge anyone to find a triplet in what I sang. There are no triplets. I'm singing eighth notes. Ba-do, 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 ba-do. But what makes those eighth notes swing and feel like jazz, there are two things. Number one, I'm singing them legato. It's another Italian word, which means I'm not going ta 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 ta, but do ba do ba do ba do ba do. So I connect the notes. And some of the real art in jazz is knowing which notes to connect or tie or slur, and then which notes to re-articulate with a fresh ta sound. So whatever instrument you play, find some jazz that you like to listen to, and then sing along with the recording and try to sound like whatever instrument that is. Ba-do, 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 da-do, la-do, la-do, da-do, ta-da-da-da, do-ba-do, ba. And then you start to get an idea of the phrasing. I'm also accenting the offbeat. 1, 2, 3, 4, ba-do, 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 ba-do. So that gives it that wonderful little push. You know, musical style and attitude is a big part of anything we play. Now, I'm wondering if we have any football fans out there. John, are you a football fan?
I'm a sports guy, more so baseball, some basketball, but yeah, I'm definitely I watch football.
All right. Well, I'm with you.
Tough. Hey, I'm a Bay Area guy, so it's tough with the Niners where they're at right now. But that's a whole other conversation.
Well, I'm a baseball guy, but
yeah, there you go.
USC played in the Rose Bowl, and if anybody watched that, it was one of the great football games of all time. I mean, again, not being a huge football fan, I was glued to the TV because it was so exciting. Anyway, we have a marching band at USC, just like every college,
Right.
That has a football program, and the fight song, it goes like 1, 2, 3, ba 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 da 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 ba da. So it's got a lot of energy and ba-dum, ba-dum. And what would happen if our marching band came out on the field and went ta 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 ta? You know, football players all be scratching their helmets like, what's wrong? So a lot of what any kind of music is, it's the attitude, you know, and it's the energy. You know, that gets all the football fans like, yo, hey, it's football time. So when we play jazz, it's swing time. And we don't try to cram it down anybody's throat.
Nice. Very nice. That's great. And producer Adam confirmed for me that Rob is a guitar player. So that was kind of coming from
Rob.
him.
So Rob, check out jazz guitar players. Wes Montgomery.
Yep.
You can go back to Jimmy Rainey, Charlie Christian, Jim Hall. Or some of the more contemporary guys, John Abercrombie, Pat Metheny, John Schofield. They were all deeply influenced by Jim Hall and, of course, Wes Montgomery. So whenever you find a player you like, try to figure out who did that player listen to, because that's where they got their information.
It's good. Yeah, sometimes with music, approaching something that may seem intimidating, it's all about just how you're visualizing it. And I think that that's a really awesome way of visualizing it, just learning jazz being a new language. And if you were going to, if you wanted to learn how to speak French, you would need to hang out with some French people. You would need to listen, watch some French movies. So yeah, it's the same with jazz. I mean, some good records.
Jazz guys, we might like to think we're smarter than most other people, but we're not. We've just been playing the music a little bit longer. Every style of music is accessible to everyone. The only place where it's unique though, China. Do you ever try counting in Chinese?
No.
They got kids over there 3 years old that can do it. Smart.
Nice. Hey, so we actually have a question for Bill. Yes. Says since jazz drumming uses snare drum so extensively, can Bill share some hand technique for snare drum from the symphonic world?
Sure.
Now, John, make sure. Tell me, can you hear Bill? Because he's a little.
I can hear you. Yeah, just make sure to speak up. But yeah, we can see you and hear you.
Couple of things I'd like to talk about, and they're sort of things that Peter's already talked about. And one of the previous questions, what makes it feel right? What makes your playing feel good? I'm writing a book at the moment, believe it or not. Been in process for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
On a sense of touch. And I discovered over the years, and the hundreds of drummers I've listened to over the years, the great ones all have incredible senses of touch. Some of them are learned. Some of them are natural. Mm-hmm. I can name you a half a dozen guys that never thought about touch in their life, but they have a great sense of touch. Peter, I think probably a little of both. You worked on it, and you also had a great natural sense of touch. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes the music, is how you touch an instrument.
Yeah.
If you think of hitting an instrument, you're never going to get a decent musical sound out of it. One of the hardest things to do on a snare drum is we're dealing with an instrument that makes noise. How do you make music out of that? It's all in the sense of touch and how you strike the instrument. If you strike it very harshly with a downward blow, it's going to sound that way. If you touch it in a manner like that, it's going to sound much prettier. much nicer.
So you're lifting the sound out.
I'm lifting. I think about a lot of things when I make a stroke. I think about playing down. I think about playing up, and a combination of both to get a decent sound out of the drum. If you're always playing down, it's going to sound very hard and very loud. And it's going to make it very difficult for you to play softer. So I have students play difficult exercises as soft as they can play it and see if they can do it.
Wow.
And amazingly, a lot of them can, even better than I can. But it's difficult to do.
So it's good to practice soft.
I like soft and slow.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you about tempo next. Yeah.
Loud and fast is no better than soft and slow. For me, soft and slow is much more impressive than loud and fast. There are thousands of guys that can play loud and fast. There aren't too many who can play soft and slow. Peter's talked about playing slow tempos in a couple of his videos, and it's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
You have to think of a lot of subdivisions. Second thing I was going to talk about is the way Peter strikes cymbals and the way he thinks of time on cymbals. He has, I don't want to steal all of his thunder here, but just his description of jazz cymbal time was a total eye-opener for me, in which he's thinking quarter notes and adding what I call the catch note, or the little 16th note, to make it spang-a-lang cymbal time. But he's basically thinking the quarter notes. So all he has to play is this, and then add to it, okay? But thinking the quarter notes, basically. That was an incredible eye-opener for me, because I always thought of a phrase was the phrase over and over again. I think Jeff Hamilton thinks of it that way. But Peter doesn't. So I analyze all
the clash of the Titans. Here we go.
all these guys to figure out exactly what they're doing and how they do it. And some of them do it in different ways.
A lot of ways to swing.
Absolutely, absolutely.
A lot of ways to swing. Right.
Yeah.
How do you like that?
Cool.
That
So
camera.
So thanks for that, Bill. That question was from Tony Rocks. So thanks, Tony. This one is, I love this question. This is from Michael Newman. Sounds like another, so this is another non-drummer here. So lots of guitar players tuning in and whatnot. It says, help non-drummers like myself understand how a drummer thinks during a song regarding keeping it all together with the other musicians, cues, dynamics, tempo, etc.
You know, thank you for the question. At the Thornton School of Music at USC, we require all the jazz and pop majors, whether they're vocalists, songwriters, guitarists, bass players, keyboard players, trumpet players, whatever, to take one semester of drum set proficiency. So everyone gets an idea of what it's like on the other side of the kit and the role of the drums in contemporary music, how to play basic beats. But they also learn how to talk to a drummer. And I'm going to avoid any drummer jokes or guitar player jokes. Basically, what I tell my students that the drummer's job is, number one, to supply rhythmic information to the band. All right, so whatever I play has to be in tempo and has to give all the musicians in the room a clear idea of tempo and also feel. And feel are those subdivisions between the primary pulse. So if our tempo is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, the song could be 4, 4. So right there are 4 very different feels.
Right.
And it's a good idea when the whole band's kind of in agreement as to the feel. Straight A, relaxed eighth, swung eighth, shuffle, whatever. When I'm playing with a band for the first time, let's say we're running down a tune, I have my radar out. Oh, it's a 12-bar blues. We repeat the form. Okay, it's a 12-bar blues. Sometimes it's a 14-bar blues. It has an extended couple bars at the end, or the standards are normally 32 bars, and we tend to think of those in terms of structure in 8-bar chunks. And the melody is, we call it A. That's the A form, and the A repeats. Then you go to the bridge, B, and then you repeat the melody at the end. So a lot of standards are 32-bar AABA form. I got rhythm, da da da, boo 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 do 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 do. Again, boo do 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 do, and then da 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 da. Again, A da 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 da, and then boom, we're back at the start of the form. So if I'm playing that tune and we get to the bridge and the band went drum solo, I would know that the drum solo would just be for the bridge. I wouldn't start at the beginning. I'm honoring the form. I'm always aware of the form. Mm-hmm. Likewise, if I'm playing a tune and I notice, oh, it's almost like a 32-bar song, but it's only 30 bars. And then it starts again at the cycle. So I make a mental note. I'm always like, there's kind of a gestalt or a map that I visualize when I play. Is there a printed dynamic? Have I been told to play soft, or can I hear, hey, everyone's playing kind of mellow and soft, so I'm not going to energize it. I remember once I was reading a chart down. It was this international big band, players from Western Europe, Eastern Europe at the time when there was the wall up in separating the communist countries from the West, right. And musicians from America. And it was da 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 drum fill, and I saw drum fill, and I just was like a bull in a bull ring seeing red. It just kind of went crazy, and da, 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 and I just was playing like crazy, and the whole thing fell apart very quickly. And I'm kind of gasping. I'm like, "What happened?" And the bass player turned very slowly to me, and he went, "Hey, man, relax." I was like, yeah, I got to relax. So we, as drummers or any musician of it, we shouldn't let ourselves get too excited. We have to think of the team. How does it all fit together? And so I'm very much a team player, especially now that I've gotten older. My job is to make the other musicians play their best. And when I walk out of a jam session or a gig or a recording session and everyone's got a smile on their face, I've done my job.
That's good. That's good. This kind of links into something you were just mentioning about the bass player. So Richard Males says, hi Peter, just joined. Can you talk a little bit about the drummer locking in with the bass player? Very important.
So I just had the rare, wonderful pleasure of doing a recording session with the legendary Ron Carter. I've worked with Ron a few times over the years. I've known him since I was a kid. And Ron Carter played in Miles's incredible quintet back in the 60s. And well, in fact, when we were joking earlier about the world's most recorded, I think Ron is the world's most recorded bassist, at least acoustic bass. Remarkably prolific and wonderful player. Anyway, we were talking about my teaching duties at the University of Southern California, and I said, by the way, every once in a while, Ron, I have bass students study with me. And he went, oh yeah? He said, what do you teach to your bass students? And I said, well, number one, I teach them to listen to more George Duvivier. And he just went, okay. But George Duvivier was a bass player in New York, a few years older than Ron. An amazing bassist. and I don't bring him up to play gotcha. Like if you don't know George Duvivier, well, you ought to. But I do recommend you checking him out. Duvivier. The reason I have my bass students listen to George Duvivier is because George Duvivier generally played the bass with what I would call a short envelope. In other words, the notes weren't do, 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 but do, 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 do. So there was a great articulation and point. So it really swung. It was very percussive. Because the tendency with a lot of bass players is just to play long notes. Now, if you're trying to play jazz on an electric bass, you have to be conscious of the length, the shape, the envelope of the note. If it's just boom, 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 that's a hard thing for a drummer to hook up with. So most bass players, like when I play with Will Lee or my nephew Damian Erskine, when they're doing walking bass lines, they play a shorter bass note than they might otherwise in another style of music. So they're conscious of trying to emulate that sound and feel. There's a lot of discussion sooner or later about playing ahead of the beat, playing behind the beat, and that kind of thing. Generally, it's safe to say it's best to play right on the beat. Time should be non-negotiable. You don't want tunes to be slowing down or speeding up.
Yeah.
So if the bass and the drums don't seem to be hearing the time the same way, first thing to remember is that no one's playing badly on purpose. We sometimes get musical information through our own filter. So it helps for maybe the bass player and drummer. You record it and you say, hey, let's get together and have a pizza and let's listen. Or I might say, you know, I'm having a little trouble on this and maybe you can help me. I try not to attack, like, hey, you're making me sound bad. But help me figure out what's going on here. And then the bass player, he or she might go, oh yeah, I didn't realize I'm speeding up or I'm slowing down or I'm ahead of the beat. So listening back is a really good way to check your time. And don't be afraid to talk about it. I was on tour with Mark Johnson, an incredible bassist, and we spent countless hours, either as we were traveling or after gigs, just talking about what we did. For example, one thing that we kind of made a rule about, if I'm playing time and the bass is going do 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 that works kind of cool because I'm going, well, I don't want to do you know, just to try to jump on every idea the bass player might play. The bass player chooses to do that because I'm playing straight time. Likewise, if we're going the drummer's ideas work because the bass is holding it together. So generally, this idea of like copying everything that someone else in the rhythm section does, that's not jazz. That's we call it Mickey Mousing. Like in the old cartoon days, the character would do something on screen, the music would imitate it. So you don't want to Mickey Mouse too much.
Good. That's great. I have another one here. Lots of people are actually asking about that, you know, working with bass players, incorporating pocket and groove and feel with bands and other musicians. This one is asking about, more to thinking about kind of practice routine. The person says, hi, Peter. Do you have any tips on practicing? There's lots of exercises I need to practice, but how can I set up an effective practice routine and figure out what I need to focus on with practicing?
I might let Bill jump in here, but
Yeah.
I'll start off.
Okay.
I currently employ two kinds of practice routines, sometimes three. One would be a general maintenance, just making sure my hands and feet are working, and I do exercises where I can predict the outcome and I have a desired goal. Okay. Number two would be homework for a specific gig that's coming up. I might have a particular challenge. A couple of years ago, I had to play the drums for the symphony orchestra, the Los Angeles Philharmonic, and Bernstein's West Side Story.
Awesome.
The piece that Bill has done many times. This was new territory for me, so I practiced it and practiced it a lot because I didn't want to be there on the day of the first rehearsal and be looking at the music and trying to figure out what to do with my hands. I wanted to know it. But the third kind of practice that I do nowadays, since I don't have to report to a teacher, it's I guess I would call it interactive practice or feedback practicing. So I'll just start playing. So immediately, when I did I'm doing these double bass drum. I noticed that when the bass drum started with the hi-hat, it wasn't feeling 100% confident. It was good, but it wasn't as good as I knew it could be. So then I'm going to massage that. It's like a masseuse finding a bump. Okay, let's work that kink out. And I'll slow it down. I'll analyze it. What's going on? Are my heels down? Is my balance good? What's happening? And then once I satisfy myself, okay, that seems to be better. I'll go back to that next time I practice. So it's kind of a mindful practicing where I let my playing kind of tip me off to what's happening. Or I might come back from a gig and the next morning say, gosh, this happened to me once. I was playing with Bob Shepard and Dave Carpenter, and they were always coming in early. When I would do this I was trying to do this Elvin Jones thing. And at the time, I'm like, boy, why are you guys coming in early? But I thought about it the next morning, and these guys have great time. They weren't coming in early. I was coming out of it late. Well, let's test that. So I set up the metronome, I played it, and sure enough, I was taking too long to complete this lick. I wasn't thinking of the time as much as the lick. So I had to practice that with the metronome to right the wrong, as it were. So, 10 minutes of mindful practice is as much or more productive than 2 hours of just slogging away. If you're not aware of tempo and aware of your posture and aware of tone, then you're just putting in hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bill, what do you say?
Well, a couple of things. Actually, several things.
Bill taught at the conservatory in Cincinnati for many years.
Right.
Anyway, the best lesson I ever got, as far as practice is concerned, is a teacher asked me one time when I was a young kid how much I practiced. And I told him, well, I try to practice at least an hour a day. And he said, I don't care how long you practice. He said, I don't want you practicing mistakes.
Yeah.
When you practice, you need to maintain what you already know how to do. You need to practice what you don't know how to do. You don't practice what you already know how to do. That's maintenance. It gets right to the point of practicing mistakes or practicing bad habits. You don't want to do that. I will give you a couple of stories. I just happened to be there and witness it. I'm a graduate of Eastman School of Music in Rochester, New York, and I had the good fortune of having a couple schoolmates by the name of Steve Gadd and Tony Levin. And in our dormitory, we all had to live in the dorm. We had a room that had a pool table, and I was playing pool. And out in the hall is Steve Gadd and Tony Levin playing time from about 10 o'clock at night till about 4 o'clock in the morning every night. Just playing time together, just the two of them.
Yeah.
So to answer the bass player who asked the question and the drummer, that's a good thing. Is if you have a good friend who's a good drummer, and assuming you're a good bass player, get together, the two of you, and practice time together.
Wow.
Yep.
And that's what Steve and Tony did, and look where they are today.
Yeah.
So, you know, as far as practice is concerned, you can practice the wrong stuff too long. You know, hand positions, grip. I don't like the word grip. I use hand positions is what we're talking about as far as a stick is concerned. My mother was from Pennsylvania. We spoke Pennsylvania Dutch. And the word grip had a lot of different meanings. Grip could mean your suitcase when you were going on a trip. That was called a grip.
Oh, wow.
If you caught a cold or you had the flu, that was the grip.
That was the grip. Right.
Okay, but never holding a drumstick was a grip. It had nothing to do with it. It was a hand position. So those few little things, hopefully.
I imagine there's some people out there. Wow, Steve Gadd in a dorm.
Yeah, we were 17 and 18 years old at the time.
Wow,
That's
And
great.
I don't know how long ago that was, but it was more than 50.
goodness.
Oh, that's great. Well, so Peter, when I was back at the beginning of this conversation, when I was introducing you, there was so much to say in just a short introduction. I kind of glossed right over the time you've spent in film and working on scores for movies. I know most recently, most notably, you were on the La La Land score, which that movie is obviously, Academy Awards talk and nominations and just really huge right now. So maybe you can just tell us a little bit about the differences between a session where you're working on a record and a session where you're working on a film and what they have in common and the differences there.
Yeah, La La Land. It's a wonderful film, directed by Damien Chazelle, and he's the same director that did Whiplash. I didn't enjoy that film quite as much, and in fact, I was asked questions about it by the public television station here, and on their website appeared my comments, which were I wasn't trying to criticize the film, but it's kind of like when you watch a TV show like Homeland, and if they interview a CIA agent, say, how realistic is it? You go, well, it's not very realistic. It's a cool show, but that's not the way spycraft goes down. It didn't ruin my enjoyment of Homeland. So I was hoping that I wouldn't ruin anyone's enjoyment of the film, but in my experience of working with band directors and band leaders and working with a lot of drummers and being a drummer, much of it didn't ring true. And by the way, if you've ever seen the film and you're a drummer and you experience frustration, one very important word of advice: don't ever attempt punching your hand through a snare drum head. All you're going to do is break your wrist. It's Hollywood, folks.
Yeah.
Okay? And don't ever be in a car accident and expect that you can go play a competition falling on broken glass.
So a couple holes in the plot.
A couple holes in the plot. I had nothing to do with the drumming on that film, but I did work on La La Land, and it was quite a bit of fun. I mean, we were told, here's a movie about a pianist who's a real enthusiast for the music of Thelonious Monk, and he meets a girl, and that was pretty much all they told us. Now, I did ask them who will be playing the drums on screen, because I was doing all the pre-record for all the live band scenes, in addition to a number of the big dance numbers and stuff. But for the pre-record sessions, I asked, who's the drummer? I said, oh, it's a young guy. I said, like a young lion really trying to prove himself? And yeah. So I sort of overplayed like how I imagined maybe some young guy would do. And then I see the film. It's like a 65-year-old dude just sitting there like, oh, I kind of got that one wrong. But the film is great, and the recording sessions for La La Land were fairly relaxed.
Yeah.
Many times when you do a session, I've done some work with John Williams. I did a TV show called Gallivant, which was a lot of fun, big symphony orchestra. When you have that many musicians in a room, time and money are inextricably linked.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be the person that miscounts and ruin a 3-minute take that 80 musicians have to start all over and do again, because then you feel bad, and you're also the dummy.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure.
Right? So you concentrate. Now when I'm counting, I don't rely on 16, 17, 18, wait, 17. Oh no, I go 1, 2. I keep a finger count going, because it's oftentimes we're recording this stuff the first or second time you play it down, and they go, that was great, we're going to keep it. So that's one trick. I do that. I make notes if I hear anything that doesn't seem to be notated in the part. You really got to pay attention, because the sessions can move along pretty quickly. And you try not to ask too many questions. You just pay attention. If you hear something, like, okay, you just make a good musical choice. A cute story, the first time I worked with John Williams was on a film called Memoirs of a Geisha. Mm-hmm. And I got the call. I was very excited, and wow. They didn't mention the film name. They just said, working with John Williams. So I looked up, what's John Williams working on? Memoirs of a Geisha. It's a film that takes place in Japan in the 1930s. Is John familiar with my contemporary jazz work? Maybe he wants me to come and play colors. Okay, well, I'll bring that drum set. Maybe it's period piece. I better bring a 1930s drum set. Okay, well, but he's also working on a film called Munich that takes place in the early 70s. Maybe I need maybe it's period music for that. So I had a disco kit brought. So I had my drum cartage company bring 3 drum sets. And I show up to the studio, and Sean Murphy, the engineer, I was there early. I said, good morning, Sean. He goes, your drums sound really good. I said, thanks. He said, yeah, you're welcome. I said, too bad you're not going to be playing them. I said, what do you mean? He goes, you're going to be in those big Japanese drums. So I go in the room, and one of the percussionists named Michael Fisher, he had these large Japanese taiko drums. Wow, oh, okay. John Williams walks in, maestro, and he goes, please call me John. Hey, John. We chat a bit, and he goes, let's look at this first piece you'll be playing. So he directs me over to 3 small tom-toms, Japanese taiko, odaiko. And they're kind of tight, boom, boom, boom. The sticks are about this big around.
Baseball bats.
Yeah, they're pretty big. And it's in 6/8 time. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it. It looks all doable. It's on 4 pages. And I'm still trying to figure out, why am I here? I should be playing my drums. And then John Williams says, I'd like you to approach this as if you were a Japanese Buddy Rich. And I instantly knew what he wanted. He didn't want the classical no offense, but
Yeah.
you know, classical guys tend to play things more vertical.
Yeah.
And jazz guys, we are legato. So, you know, the way I would phrase it naturally is just going to feel the way he wanted.
Right.
So he didn't want that thing. So okay, now I know why I'm here. And then as we're doing it, I'm thinking, I'm really glad I studied how to read in school, because this is all about reading and execution and being accurate. And it was very fun. And you know, I'm a movie fan too, so I just love being part of the whole process.
Very nice.
On the drum roll. Oh my God! Sorry. Hey, if anyone out there can tell me how to make my computer not ring when a phone call comes in. My phone's in the house.
Phone isn't even here.
It came through the internet.
Everything, it's all connected these days.
I hate it.
Well, hey, so
Florida. I don't know who that was.
well,
The other film I was going to mention that I did this year, I did Secret Life of Pets.
yeah, great score.
That had a lot of drums in it. And that was a big band, the composer Alexandre Desplat, French guy. And I went up to Maestro. I just want to thank you for all the music. He goes, no, no, no. That's my French invitation. He's like, no, I thank you. I thank you for the music because I'm a big jazz fan. I'm a big fan of yours. So that took a lot of pressure off. The one thing you don't want to do in most films is play anything that's a signature. I was, there's no offense to Vinny, but I was watching a film once, and it's a scene down at the dock, and there's two people are talking on the dock, and there's the boat, and I hear the music. And then all of a sudden I hear this drum thing, and I was like, thanks, Vinny. You just, it was just a Vinny thing. I could just tell it was Vinny. And it just took me totally out of the movie. So just like serving a song, you try to serve what the composer and the director want. And you also learn, like I said, I think I mentioned, you don't ask too many questions. Generally, you don't open your mouth too much. You want to make this process as efficient as you can, because they have so many things they have to take care of that a drummer's concerns are about the least of them.
Yeah.
So just do the job and give them what they want. Stay out of the way. If they're happy, life's good.
Sure. So what you're saying is, I really like what you said there. So basically, whether it's a song or a score for a film, what you do can either bring somebody into it or totally take them out of it. And you need to remember that when you're deciding what to play and how to play it.
Exactly. And as part of the process is basically shut up and play the drums.
There you go. Well, hey, so we need to
Wait, Bill wants to jump in. Hold on. What?
I just want to jump in with one last bit of information that I've analyzed Peter for many years now in his playing. And you have not heard him say one thing about chops in this entire interview. He's talked about musical elements. He's talked about time. He's talked about touch. He's talked about dynamics. Maybe we haven't talked about dynamics enough. But he's talked about phrasing. How many drummers talk about phrasing? Dynamics, to me, are probably the most important thing we have to deal with. And I think Peter would agree with that.
I'd agree, and I thank you. I know we got to end real quick, but I was sitting with Dave Weckl the other night.
Yeah.
And we're listening to Steve Gadd, and Steve sounds like, it's amazing. His band, you got to see his band if you ever see his band playing anywhere.
What's this at, Am?
No, this was at the Catalina Jazz Club in Los Angeles. And the Gadd band's doing their thing, and it sounds really great. We're just like, wow, digging it. And then Weckl turns to me, and he goes, how's he do that? And I said, balance. And he goes, no, that's not what I mean. And I went, that's exactly what I mean. that's what Steve's doing. It's not even a technique. It's he
Right.
balances the elements so beautifully
Yeah.
that it just flows. And I said, that's why it works. That's why it's like so killing. You're like, because it's like meatloaf and oatmeal put together, the greatest comfort foods with peanut butter and banana added on top. It's
Meatloaf and oatmeal. I hadn't heard of that.
I'm getting hungry. It just feels so good, you know. And when you think of Gad, it's what he makes the music feel good.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All those elements.
Yeah, it's you know, it's so much fun to listen to that. You know, like loud, and that's not so easy for me to listen to. But you know, I'm an old guy.
Awesome. All right. Well, we might run a little bit long here, but that's okay. I have one more question I wanted to get to because it's just short and sweet. David Bartel says, I love the legendary live tapes CD for Weather Report. Thanks so much for producing that. Are there any more unreleased live recordings of Weather Report we can expect?
David, thank you very much. If there are, I'm out of that loop. That was my contribution. It was a labor of love. It was a lot of work, and it wasn't the easiest thing in the world to clear all the hurdles.
Yeah, I bet.
To get that stuff to see the light of day. However, if you're interested in other unreleased music, at my website, petererskine.com, I've just posted a new page. It's the digital archives, and you can find printed music there that you can download, but also unreleased recordings, remixed, new things. I'm going to be adding to it constantly. Business is slow there, but the music is great. And I have an engineer at Warner Brothers at the film studio there. He's baking some of my old tapes. We're going to try to pull this incredible music off from England of a project I did there with Kenny Wheeler, John Taylor, Marty Ehrlich, a lot of great players. So that's in the works. Weather Report, I'm sure that the Zolvanel estate is putting together some stuff. I know they're sitting on a tremendous number of tapes, so you check out Weather Report, and I'm guessing something will come out down the road.
Very cool. Very cool.
I should also mention my new Dr. album titled Second Opinion is going to be released February 17th.
Okay.
We're really excited. I think it's the best one yet.
Nice.
And that album will be coming out soon. And thanks everyone for your fingers crossed for the Grammys coming up for the first Dr. And I hope that well, whatever happens, doesn't matter. There you go. You got your Dr. shirt.
I should have worn it. I wasn't thinking.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, just a thrill to be nominated, and my label Fuzzy Music had another album nominated, Bob Mintzer's all LA band, many of which tunes you can play along with if you're enrolled in the drum school here at ArtistWorks. We got a tremendous amount of play along material, and any questions we didn't get answered, the answers are there in those 200 plus lessons that we made. So thank you, gang, for allowing me to be part of this incredible family. I think we're making the world a better place by sharing all this love about music.
Amen. Thank you so much for joining us. We have the announcement. Our winner is Tony Rocks, aka Tones. You are the winner, my friend. So thank you so much for your participation and your questions that you submitted. Listen to George DeVivier.
Platt from Puck Productions here in Santa Monica, my studio where I do all my ArtistWorks stuff. And here's my drum set. Whoops, there we go.
Very nice.
And you see the incredible lighting system that we have, and there are cameras everywhere. It's very cool. I'm going to grab some lunch, and then I've got about 10 video exchange replies to put together and upload. So if you're wondering where your video reply has been the last few days, Thanks for your patience. The NAMM show just disrupted everything in my life, but it's always fun to look at new instruments, like snare drums.
Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Peter. Best of luck to you on February 12th at the Grammys. And thanks, everyone, for tuning in. And we'll see you guys next month.